band, band, coming round the bend is Boogie Man Band. Is Boogie Man Band.
Greetings, my fellow Fright Fiends. Thanks so much for stopping by the Horror Zone channel. I hope everyone's doing well. Happy Friday the 13th to all my fellow fiends. This is the only Friday the 13th we're getting in 2025. The next Friday the 13th will not be until February of 2026. We're going to get one in February and March, which is kind of cool. So back-to-back Friday the 13th next year. So the last Friday the 13th that we had was in December of last year, and like probably the last normal month I feel like we've had. But back then I did a video I talked about how greed had stalled the Friday the 13th franchise, and I talked about the lawsuit between Victor Miller and Horror Inc., that being Sean Cunningham's company. For this year, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I thought I would talk about a couple things. One thing I did want to talk about, because there is more news about the upcoming Crystal Lake television series. We do know that Linda Cardellini is going to be playing Mrs. Voorhees. We also see that I also saw that Adrienne King, who played Alice Hardy in the original film and in its sequel, the 1981 sequel of Friday the 13th Part 2, is going to be coming back as Alice Hardy. I don't know how that's going to work, but I would love to see Adrienne King come back as that character, because I really love that actress. There's also actor William Catlett, who's playing Levon Brooks. Now, I know him from Abigail. He played Rickles in that, so he's in the cast as well. And this originally was going to be done by Brian Fuller, who people know from like Hannibal. Brad Kane is now the showrunner. I still don't know how to feel about this series. I'm not really that excited about it. I am a fan of Linda Cardellini. I think she's a terrific actress, and I'm curious to see how she'll play Pamela Voorhees. The other thing I thought I'd talk about is something that's kind of been going around online, was people's opinions of the new design for Jason and the Jason universe, which I talked about last year as well, because I really just don't understand it. They really haven't done a lot with it. But Greg Nicotero did like a redesign of Jason, and I have a lot of respect for Greg Nicotero. I think he's an amazing makeup artist, and I think he's a terrific director. It's kind of just like, what's the point of redesigning Jason if they're not really going to do anything with the character right now? It seems like their focus is on the television series, which is going to focus on Pamela Voorhees. What is the Jason universe? There really still hasn't been that much of anything that's come out of it. And I talked about it last year around this time, saying that, I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand what the point was, especially if they're not trying to fast track any movies right now. I mean, nothing new in terms of a movie in almost 2 decades. So, that's what fans want. We want a new Friday the 13th film, not this Jason Universe television series stuff. The last thing I wanted to talk about was my collecting. Friday the 13th collecting. I mean, I've always said that this kind of was the room that Jason built, even though I focus a lot on Salem's Lot, which is my favorite movie. Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees, that's my favorite franchise. I grew up with it. It was like my chicken soup. It was kind of like, it was that series that every year I got to look forward to a new film, and that was kind of my first horror franchise that really just got me into being a horror fan. After that came Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween and, stuff like that. But Friday the 13th was the first one. And I thought I would talk about my favorite collectible, which is hard to sort of pin down. I have quite a few things here in this room that are Friday the 13th related, a lot of rare things. Independent artists like Luke Welch Sculpture. I have a lot of his little, I call them little muscle men kind of Jason style figures. Hockey masks, things like that from NECA. Also the amazing stuff from like Sideshow Collectibles, which is the first video I did on this channel, focused on the Terror of Crystal Lake, Jason Voorhees statue. And I don't know why anybody watched that Terror of Crystal Lake video. It was absolutely horrible. I don't know how I got any subscribers from it, because it's all dark and certain things are out of focus. I actually turned the camera at one point so everything goes sideways. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was so excited to get that statue. I had waited for for it, and I was so happy to show it off. And it kind of catapulted, what I do here on the channel and what I've been doing for 15 years. But I started thinking about my favorite collectible that I have of Jason. And there's a lot of great ones, like I said, but the one I think I'm going to go with is the one that I got in October of 2016, and that is the Legend of Crystal Lake, which I have right over here. That statue was one that I pre-ordered in the summer of 2015 when I was still working for Meyer Corp. Between when I pre-ordered it and when it arrived, I actually got laid off from my job. So when it finally did arrive, I was working at Google. I was actually finishing up my contract with Google. And for some reason, I just slipped my mind that I had put the shipping for the statue to be shipped to where I was working at the time when I pre-ordered it. So it actually shipped there to my old job. And I remember panicking because I was like going, oh, it's going to arrive today. And then realizing it actually shipped to my work, my old work. And luckily, I had a great former colleague who, unfortunately, I haven't seen in a very long time, but her name was Amy. She was a great friend. We used to joke all the time. I would always sort of walk by her desk and throw Jim Carrey movie lines out to her, like from Yes Man or Liar Liar, and we had a really good time and lots of good laughs. She was still working there at the time. I believe she still works there now. And I told her about what had happened. She actually was nice enough to get the statue and take it home with her. And then I drove to her house. The figure was in the back of her car. And I got to bring it home and open it. And I was just so excited to see it. And it's still my prized Friday the 13th item that I have here in the room. And the last Sideshow statue I ever bought. So yeah, I love it. It's my favorite. And it's sort of, I think, is the sort of premier representation of Jason Voorhees, played in that movie by the late great Richard Brooker. I love the statue. I love everything about it, and it's sort of my showpiece here in the horror zone. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Like I said, not a ton for this Friday the 13th, but I always got to do a Friday the 13th video because, like I said, it's my favorite franchise. Jason Voorhees is my favorite horror character. I'm going to have a marathon like I always do. Last time I watched 1 through 5 and fell asleep on part 5. That was where I finally just crashed out. But yeah, I'm going to flip a coin and see which ones come up, which ones I decide to binge this evening. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I hope everyone has a great Friday the 13th, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon. Stay scared as always, and remember, Jason's out there. Peace.